Welcome to Bounce Back Stronger, the podcast that explores ways to find peace and purpose after difficulty. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting award-winning author Roland Merullo. A little bit about Roland. Roland Merullo is an accomplished author with an impressive repertoire of 28 books under his belt, with 21 works of fiction to his name, including acclaimed titles like Breakfast with Buddha and The Talk Funny Girl. Not only has Murillo received honors for his literary achievements, but he has shared his expertise as a writer in residence at both the North Shore Community and Miami-Dade colleges, and as a professor of creative writing at Bennington Amherst and Lesley colleges. It is such a pleasure to speak with you, Roland. Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
Well, I really appreciate it. I reached out to you after I saw a display of your Buddha books at one of my favorite bookstores in Duck, North Carolina. It reminded me how much I love the Breakfast with Buddha book. And I do think it probably had a step on my spiritual journey, honestly, with yoga and Buddhism. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm glad you found it. I love that store too. That's a great store.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Jamie at all?
Yes, I do. I gave a talk there. I don't know how many years ago it was, 7 years ago, maybe, that
Yeah.
sponsored it. The talk was in a community building, not at the bookstore, but Jamie was the one who arranged it.
Yeah, she's very kind. She owns the Manteo bookstore, those who are going to the OBX, Manteo bookstore, and she also owns Duck's Cottage now. So,
Antio
uh,
might have been where we had the talk, or a building near the bookstore, as I remember.
yeah, that seems right. It is my favorite coffee store in Outer Banks. Not everywhere. I can't say that it's the number one. I'll make some other people unhappy, but I do really love it there. And she really knows her books. So maybe this is a good segue, that whole, how I came to your book and how it helped me in my spiritual journey. Many of your novels, including the one we just talked about, navigate the complexity of organized religion in contemporary society. And they always tend to have somebody who's a naysayer, which I kind of love too. What draws you to explore the theme, and what do you hope people take away from your books about this subject?
I was brought up in a very religious Roman Catholic family, church every Sunday, confession, holy days of obligation. I think I went to Mass every Sunday for 23 years or 24 years. And I gradually moved away from that practice. I became interested, partly thanks to Thomas Merton, who was a Catholic
Mm.
monk, who gave people like me permission to explore Eastern thought because he was interested and widely read. That Catholic grounding was important to me. There were certain aspects of the church I personally don't like. I respect anybody who has a faith practice that doesn't hurt another person, but I moved away from that, and I still incorporate it though into my thinking in some ways. I'm happy that we heard the Bible readings every Sunday. That was really valuable. And so it's really natural for me to incorporate that into writing. And really, all the books, almost all the books, in one way or another, have a dimension that has something to do with. I really don't like the word spirituality. It's just misused so much, but thoughtfulness or consideration of our predicament is another way to say it. But almost all my books have some aspect of that.
Yeah. And you've said, I think, that the books aren't autobiographical, but I'd be interested to know where you've kind of fit into some of these stories. It's almost like you're exploring these themes.
The only really autobiographical book is Revere Beach Elegy, which is a memoir, but the characters in many of the other books have a piece of me in there someplace. The men, the women, the old, the young, the Americans, the non-Americans. It's just a way, I think many authors create characters that way. They have a piece of themselves in there, and a piece of it is observation of humanity, and a piece of it is just pure imagination.
And since you've written a memoir, I'm curious, was that harder or was that easier for you than fiction?
It's different. Fiction, you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, but you have to make up a world. So the first part of that is easy. The second part is more difficult. Nonfiction, you have no freedom if you do it ethically. You don't have to make up anything. but you have the story already there. You're not required to come up with a plot or characters or anything like that. It's all there. So to me, they balance each other out in terms of difficulty.
It's interesting because I'm writing my first novel after writing a memoir, and it not having the answer is sometimes hard. I'm trying to figure that out.
I
The
think the
imagine,
answer comes as you write. I think
yeah.
I really believe after having written for so long and so many books and taught, I haven't taught in a long time, but I did teach a lot. I did read a lot of works of other people. And I feel like the story exists in your subconscious.
Mhm.
And the deal is, the work is to bring that out of your subconscious and make it make sense. And sometimes it comes out in pieces like a dream does, and things don't seem to make sense. And you have to tie those together into some kind of narrative that people can follow.
I love that. That's a really interesting way to think about it. And it's kind of reassuring in a way because it kind of tells you it's already in there. You just need to bring it out.
Yes, I think it involves a certain amount of courage.
Yeah.
Even if you're disguising the material with fiction, to probe that material. I'm talking about serious literature, not
Hmm.
literature purely for entertainment, which is fine, but that's not what I'm talking about. To go down, this is the way I think of it, to go down into those parts of yourself, some of which are uncomfortable or worse, and then bring them out into the world, even in the form of a character. I think it takes a certain kind of psychological, emotional courage.
Agreed. And I also think that when you're writing either memoir or fiction, you also have these moments where you can really drop a line that's just transformative for people, and you have a real knack for that.
Yeah,
How does that come about?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Well, it's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. There are moments that are really euphoric for me in writing. You write a scene and it comes out well, and I'm not sure exactly where the euphoria comes from. I think it's grasping that material that's in the subconscious. That's the way I think of it. That it is there. You have dug down, you have found it, and you have found a way to express it that feels right. And definitely, a lot of times when I finish a book, I have a sense of euphoria, almost drug-like.
Yeah. Because you brought up Thomas Merton earlier, and he's a mystic. So it's interesting. You almost have a mystic quality, I think, in your process. Was that influenced at all by him, or?
I think that comes to people naturally. I think I don't like to use that word in describing myself, although I think that a lot of writers have that, a lot of people have that sense. And to me, it means something beyond the everyday. I feel like we're born, and within a very short time, we just join the crowd going down the road, and we don't really think about it. And we think about what I'm going to eat, what my pleasures are, what my problems are. And I, I think there's a part of everybody that could allow that person to step aside outside I think of it as a rush of billions of people hurrying down a highway. Just step aside and think, hey, what's going on here? And some people really indulge that and they really pursue it, and many people don't. And I think that's where the word mystic comes from, that the people who are willing to step aside and ponder is the word I think of. Like Merton, he's a great example, deserve the word mystic.
They look for more than what they see.
I mean, your heart is beating right now. My heart is beating. Air is going into us and out, and we just completely take that for granted.
Hmm.
Most of us, most of the time.
Most of the time.
And it's really should not be taken for granted. It's really incredible. You can't walk around your whole life thinking, wow, this is amazing. I'm breathing. But from time to time to consider it is worthwhile, I think.
Yeah, a new practice for me is, and I heard it from another podcast actually, waking up with gratitude and ending the day with gratitude. And I also have scheduled gratitude breaks during the day, but I wasn't doing it at night and I wasn't
Mm.
doing it when I first got up. And it's making a huge difference. Most of the time, it's gratitude that I got up, no, at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
And then gratitude at the end of the day, because it's so easy to ruminate. It's so easy to go off the reservation, and it's been really helpful for me.
yeah, it's a great practice, I think.
Yeah,
Gratitude is the opposite of taking something for granted.
exactly. Exactly. We're kind of talking about paths in a way. There's always kind of like a road trip in, at least in some of the books that we're talking about today. It's almost like a way to kind of take people off that path, that standard path. Is that something that resonates with you as an idea?
Yeah, I think so. I love road trips. I love driving. I love traveling. And I think it's an obvious metaphor for life. You start someplace, you end up someplace, and in the middle, good things and not so good things happen. And how do you deal with the not so good things? And what are your expectations? Are they fulfilled or not? It's kind of a perfect metaphor for life, in my opinion. And not all my books are, but a lot of them are. And I could do that all day. Breakfast with Buddha, I had a conversation with the editor at Algonquin. I had published Golfing with God, and it had done well. And he called me up and he said, we did well with Golfing with God. We'd like you to write another book like that, not about golf. He coined the term quirky spiritual.
I
So
love
we
that.
we would like to have another quirky spiritual novel from you. Do you have any ideas? And I didn't have any ideas, but I did have two little kids, and I had the support and my wife. And I thought for a second. I said, I've never been to North Dakota. I've been to 45 other states. I just have a feeling that North Dakota would be spiritual for me. It'd be empty and beautiful and evocative. And I love to drive. And I just feel like I could drive to North Dakota and write a good book. And there was a long pause, and he said, could you be more specific? And I said, no. I said, I don't work that way, and no. And I like to say they made an advance commensurate with their enthusiasm, which, you know, but it worked out. And that was the only thing I started with, was just I wanted to take a drive and I wanted to go to North Dakota.
That's beautiful. It sounds like you're more, they call them pantsers versus plotters. Just you more of a pantser?
What's the term?
The pantser. So right by the seat of your pants as opposed to having everything plotted out.
The Talk Funny Girl I began with, and Revere Beach Boulevard, and a whole lot of other books. I began with a moment, an image.
Mm.
Leaving Los Altos, my first book, I had a very strong moment in mind. Revere Beach Boulevard. I remember the moment. It was an old Italian American carpenter sitting in his backyard waiting for the full moon to rise. That's all I had.
Wow.
And I think, okay, where's the juice in that moment? Like, why is that worth reading about? And so I thought, okay, his wife is just about to die and she's inside the house. She's in the last hours or days of her life. His son calls and says he's in jail, just to make it interesting. Same thing with road trips. I just start someplace and I watch, I really observe. I try to incorporate what I see into the book. I try to do things that make it interesting, like in Breakfast with Buddha, going to the chocolate factory, the
Mhm.
Hershey's factory. I would
Can't
never
go
do.
wrong there.
I would never do that on my own. I'm not a flexible kind of person, much as I like chocolate. So I just thought, Talk Funny Girl, I started with an image of a young girl walking down a road, living in the country.
Yeah.
And I just say, okay, what would make that moment interesting?
And does that become a scene? Like, where does that fit? Where does that scene fit in your mind in the book when you think of it?
I think all those are the first scenes of the book.
Okay. So that's how it opens.
They're
And
all the
then,
opening scenes, yeah.
and what are all the things that contribute to that moment? That's fascinating. And the other big thing you're known for is humor, which I certainly see. And you like to put people in these kind of uncomfortable situations, but relatable situations. It's not, there's no slapstick here. It's real situations. How do you pull that off so well?
Todd, I think the things that I always told students, that the three things that are most difficult in writing are writing about sex,
Mm,
writing humor, and writing a scene of a group of people talking at the same time, because you have to keep saying, Tony said, Madeline said, it's interruptive. Sex can either be pornographic on one end, or, the bodice rippers on the other, where nothing really happens. And to try to write in the middle there is very difficult. And
Hmm.
humor is really difficult because in person you have gestures, you have facial expression, you have timing, you have tone of voice. If you ever watch a good professional comedian, they use all those things, and you don't have any of those on the page. So
Right.
that's complicated. I can be pretty goofy by nature. If I have a couple of drinks, I can be very goofy. So that's a piece of it. The other piece, more importantly, is I don't have any spiritual qualifications whatsoever. I'm not ordained. I didn't go to divinity school or anything. So to traipse into that territory, which is difficult, I mean, people get in big fights about religion and
Mm.
politics, and to go there without a
Repeatedly.
without a sense of right is a little crazy, and the sense of humor leavens it, and it makes it
Yeah.
palatable, I think, for people.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
American Savior, I wrote it was Jesus comes to earth and runs for president, and politics and religion at the same time. So that was really crazy. But I only got one piece of hate mail, so I consider that.
That's pretty good. That's really good. I look at Breakfast in Buddha in particular. I'm rereading it, and I think initially I really related to Otto because I was in business. I probably picked up the book at the airport. I mean, I'm sure when I was traveling, and now I relate more to Rinpoche and to Otto's sister. It's kind of a really cool thing to do, folks. If anybody has read the book earlier in their life, I highly recommend rereading it just because it'll be interesting to see what might come about.
And I tried to make Otto, there's static and dynamic characters, as you know, and I wanted Otto to be a dynamic character. And over the course of those four books, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert, I wanted him to keep changing and evolving in different ways, which was a real challenge. Rinpoche is more of a static character.
Yeah.
And that was a challenge to find something new
Yeah.
to trace Otto's spiritual evolution without making it a straight line from skeptic to believer.
Yeah. It's very hard. So maybe talk a little bit about what you do around meditation and yoga yourself. You talked about Thomas Merton, but or do you do yoga and meditation?
I used to do yoga pretty faithfully. I have had some physical problems. I have a
Mm.
really bad kind of arthritis, and that got worse in the last 5 years. I've had it
I'm
since
sorry.
I function okay, but yoga has become more difficult. I definitely getting back into it. I took a private class last year because right now to keep up with a regular, even a beginner class would be a little bit much. I love yoga, I really do. The people who invented or discovered it must have been amazing people.
Yeah.
I meditate pretty much every day, and I have for 45 years.
Yeah. You can tell, I think, in your writing. I'm a little biased, I think, because a lot of my writing instruction has been around meditating, meditating in a room, visualizing the scene. So yeah, you can definitely tell. Do you do
But
any of that or
I think it ties into what I said before about the subconscious. I mean,
yeah,
meditation is all about the subconscious. It's like therapy is all about the subconscious and making it conscious. And meditation has been massively helpful for me in my writing life, incredibly helpful for me.
yeah. And it helps focus too, right? In a lot of
Absolutely.
ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Patience, focus. Absolutely.
Patience. Yeah. I'm still working on that one too.
So
Maybe tell me a little bit about your latest book, The Light Over Como.
the Light of Lake Como is the fourth. I kind of went down a side road the last few years pursuing an interest of mine, which is World War II in Italy. I've been to
Mm.
Italy a lot. My father's parents were from Italy. And we were at Lake Como one summer, my wife and I and our two girls who were pretty small then. And Amanda and I took a walk down the road, and we passed this villa that had a very simple little cross-shaped plaque in front of it that said Benito Mussolini, April 29th, 1945.
Wow.
I had no idea what it meant. I didn't think he'd been born there. I thought he had been hung in Milan, which has turned out not to be true. And that just prompted me to do research on Mussolini, which prompted me to do research on the partisan resistance in Italy. And I've written four novels about that. And this is definitely, Light Over Lake Como is definitely the final. I feel like I've exhausted that fascination and
Yeah,
said everything I wanted to say about it.
that's awesome. I'll have to pick those up because my husband's a big World War II
Oh,
buff.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I bet he'd like that. And the other thing I noticed that you have a Substack with your daughter, which sounds amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's my older daughter, Zanny Merullo Stefken, and she makes her living as a writer also.
Wow.
And we've had over the years, from the time she was a little kid, great conversations. And I don't remember exactly how it came about, but we decided to try to write a Substack, which is twice monthly long, couple of thousand word conversation in quotes between me and her on subjects we think are interesting. So we talked about the way society makes men and women think they should act certain ways. We talked
Mm,
about conspiracy theories. We talked about the work-life balance. We talked about the value of travel, any subject that we feel is important. And it's called Hi Zan, Hi Pa. And we just we alternate starting and choosing the subject. And I'll say, Hi, Zan, what do you think about this? Or I've been thinking about this lately. And she'll say, Hi, Pa. And then she'll say something, and we'll just go back and forth. And it's been absolutely wonderful. We have a lot of subscribers and a lot of nice comments on it. What's wonderful is that we always kind of start out in a general discussion and go deeper and deeper and get into places that I would never imagine we would get to. And we find these facets of a discussion
mm,
that I think are fascinating. I love doing it. I think she loves doing it. We both feel there's a lot of junk online and a
mm.
lot of trivial stuff, a lot of bad stuff, a lot of very superficial stuff. And we wanted to put something wholesome and thoughtful into the universe. And then we sometimes at the end will take turns adding a little audio segment, maybe addressing a part of the discussion that we couldn't get to.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do the whole thing in audio and put a transcript on, especially if we're together. And it's been a wonderful thing. We've only been doing it since I think last October.
Wow, that's a great idea. I love that you're doing something with your daughter. I really resonate with the not wanting to put more less quality things out there,
Yeah,
which is partially why I started this, is, to try to have conversations with people about things I really care about. So I really appreciate, your passion project, it sounds like.
I appreciate yours. I think by the way, the Substack is marullo.substack.com if anyone wants to look it up. I think whenever there's a pressure, there's a reverse pressure. If there's a lot of junk in the online, it almost naturally creates an urge in certain people to put something more
Hmm.
more thoughtful online. And I'm glad that humanity tends to try to find that balance at least.
Is there anything else that you want to share or something I should have asked?
I have a little bit of a passion for food that goes through the Buddha books. Some people ask about
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I grew up living in the same house and then next door to my Italian grandparents. And my
Nice.
grandmother, was making these incredible meals like every single day. So I got a little spoiled and I don't eat gourmet food at all, but I like food that's thoughtfully prepared, that's relatively wholesome and tastes good, obviously. And so I included a lot of that in the Buddha books, especially. It's fun for me to write about food. It's in the Buddha books, we really tried to find, we never stayed in a chain hotel and we
Mm-mm.
never ate in a chain restaurant. We tried to find the most interesting places we could, which in some parts of America was a real challenge. There are some places in America that have food deserts, and this
Hmm.
food there is just uninteresting by my highlights. So that's one
Yeah.
thing. That's one thing a lot of people mention.
No, it's a really good point. I do like that aspect of the road trip for sure. And I like the idea of not staying in a chain hotel. So you're kind of really getting the feel of the place that you're in.
Yeah, it's boring to write about China. What are you going to say about Holiday Inn? I mean, it's kind of everybody knows what it looks like. It's comfortable. I like them. They're fine, but in terms of the history of the place or quirky characters, visually what it's like, it's really not interesting enough to put
Yeah.
into a book, I think.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'll be really careful about what I put in when I'm writing now. It's a really good point. Okay.
What do you write? You're writing a novel, you said.
I am. It's loosely based on a time that I lost my memory, but it's going to be a murder. But I want to hit some of the themes of that I've written about before, which is grief and bouncing back from difficult times. So, yeah.
Very important, very important, very
Yeah.
important theme. There's so many people who deal with, I think everybody deals with grief at some point in one way or another.
Yeah, my niece is in a play with Kira Sedgwick off Broadway right now, and she put it really well of why she wanted to be in that play. And it's about a disability. It's a rom-com about disability, actually, in class in America. And she said, what was cool about it is that uh, you have all these important ideas, but they put it in a frame of a rom-com.
Right.
So it's in this container that everybody can relate to. So they can kind of ground into the idea, and then they can take what is actually kind of sometimes jarring differences because of what you're seeing. So I like that idea, like the idea of like, here, I want to talk about grief and loss, and but I want to do it in a container that people can feel comfortable with. So
You ever
that's my
see the
thought.
film Life is Beautiful with Roberto Benigni?
Yes.
To me, I've seen a lot of Holocaust material. That struck me more than anything.
Mm,
It was
mm,
goofy, funny, comedic. I think some people objected to that, but I
mm.
found it a tremendously powerful way to deal with that subject.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes me think about Viktor Frankl, right? Because he wrote his books out of the Holocaust as well, but his view was how do we get through that? And it certainly has to delve into some of the difficult scenes, but he really focuses more on what makes some people be able to move on. So anyway, that's kind of a theme for me in general is how do we do that? How does that happen?
That's a very important thing. It's a theme for me also in a lot of my books that people are damaged or hurt in one way or another. Talk Funny Girl probably is the greatest example, but from the first novel, Leaving Los Apis, that was true, Vietnam veteran. And what do you do with that? You
Mm.
know, that's an incredible challenge. And some people are amazingly successful at dealing with that, and some people are crushed.
Yeah, and you can understand the crushed for
Yep.
sure. I think it's important terrain, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
Good luck with it. It sounds good, and it sounds like a real challenge. I always try to think especially when I get stuck, which is not
Mm,
very often, but I try to think I'm not writing this for me.
mm.
I'm writing it for some person, even if it's one person who reads this book and it changes that person in some positive way. And that really helps with any kind of writer's block, I think.
That is great advice. I really
Good.
appreciate it, and I appreciate the time so much being with you. Thank you.
Great conversation. Thank you.
That's all for today. If you want to learn more about Roland's books and his Substack with his daughter, those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. And if it was, please subscribe, drop a review, and share it with your friends. That's the best way to get in the hands of those who may benefit. And if my daughters Sienna and Sylvia are listening, I am so proud of you and I love you so, so much. Bye now.